We tell young safety professionals the same thing every year. I hear it at graduation ceremonies, I hear it at the professional development conventions, I see it on LinkedIn. We say, go out there and make a difference. We say, challenge the status quo. We say, be a change agent. And that sounds great on a poster with an eagle soaring over a mountain. But what we don't tell them is what happens on Tuesday morning when they actually try to do that. We don't tell them that when you stand up and say, hey, I found a better way to do this inspection, you aren't just improving a process, you are threatening a social hierarchy. And according to the research I'm looking at today, the result of that proactivity isn't a promotion, it's a cold shoulder. And the result of that cold shoulder? You, the high performer, start breaking the rules on purpose just to survive. Welcome to the Mediocrity Trap. It's an all new Prove It To Me. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prove It To Me. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Law. If you are listening to this, I assume you are somewhere safe, hopefully not doom scrolling at 3 a.m. like I was when I found today's topic. I want to talk to you about the nail. You know the proverb? It's a Japanese Chinese proverb. The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. In the US, we like to pretend we don't believe that. We're the land of the cowboy, the innovator, the maverick. We love the nail that sticks out. We give the nail a TED talk. But do we? I was browsing Science Daily the other day because that is what I do for fun, don't judge me, and I saw a headline that stopped me dead in my tracks. The headline read, Avoiding the Workplace Mediocrity Trap. Now, the tagline says, confidence, persistence, ingenuity. Conventional wisdom tells us these are some of the traits needed for success at the office. But within teams, less laudable characteristics, maintaining the status quo, for instance, might be just as desirable according to new Rutgers research. Now, something like this usually leads to some fluffy qualitative survey where 5 people said their boss was mean to them, and the conclusion is be nicer. I don't need a doctoral degree to know we should be nice. But this one was different. This one linked proactivity, the good behavior, to production deviance, or the bad behavior. So naturally, I didn't trust the Science Daily summary. I mean, they do a good job, but I need the receipts. I need the regression tables. So I tracked down the actual paper. And folks, this is a good one. The study is titled Proactive Employees Perceive Coworker Ostracism, the Moderating Effect of Team Envy and the Behavioral Outcome of Production Deviance. It was published in the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology in December 2024. First off, let's do a vibe check on the journal, JOHP. This is an APA, or American Psychological Association, journal. This isn't Joe's Journal of Safety Opinions. This is peer-reviewed, impact factor heavy, rigorous stuff. The authors are a team from Rutgers, George Washington University, Renmin University in China, and ESSCA School of Management. So we have an international collaboration here, heavy on the organizational psychology expertise. So what is the core premise? The authors start with a really interesting observation. They say that usually when we study workplace ostracism, people ignoring you, leaving you out of email chains, forgetting to invite you to lunch, we look at the victim's flaws. We assume, oh, Dave is being ostracized? Well, Dave must be annoying. Maybe Dave has low political skills. Maybe Dave is neurotic. But these researchers asked a different question. They asked, what if Dave is getting ostracized because he's too good? They focused on task proactivity. This is defined as taking self directed actions to initiate changes in the workplace to benefit their work. This is us, right? This is the safety pro who builds the new dashboard. This is the industrial hygienist who figures out a new sampling strategy. And their hypothesis was simple but dark. If you're proactive, your team members, specifically the envious ones, will perceive that as a threat. They will shut you out. And because being shut out hurts, you will eventually stop trying. In fact, you might actually start sabotaging the work to get back at them. Now, let's dig into the methodology because I need to see the methodology. They didn't just ask 20 undergrads to pretend they had a job, thank goodness. They recruited 630 employees across 131 teams. That is a solid sample size. Anything over 500 in this kind of field study makes me happy. The participants were on the job postgraduate students occupying middle management positions in China. They covered industries like healthcare, consulting, real estate, manufacturing, and finance. Now, pause. I know what you're thinking. Matt, this is a Chinese sample. Does this apply to me in Florida or Texas or London? We have to acknowledge the cultural context. The authors actually address this. They mention that China is a collectivistic culture. In a collectivistic culture, group harmony is paramount. The nail that sticks out concept is strong there. However, let's be real. Have you ever worked in a union shop in the Rust Belt? Have you ever worked in a tight-knit shift on an oil rig? Human nature is human nature. Envy is not a Chinese invention. The crab bucket mentality, if I can't get out, neither can you, is universal. So while the intensity might vary by culture, the mechanism is something we need to take seriously. Here is the part of the methodology I really liked. They used a time-lagged design. This is crucial. Usually, studies ask everything at once. Are you proactive? Are you envious? Are you slacking off? The problem with that is common method bias. If I'm having a bad day, I mark everything as bad. But these researchers split it up. Time 1, they measured task proactivity, team envy, and perceived ostracism. Now, time 2, 1 month later, they measured production deviance. They wanted to see if the proactivity at the start of the month predicted the bad behavior a month later. This gives us a much stronger argument for causality. Now let's break down the definitions because production deviance sounds like a synth pop band from the 80s, but it's actually a very specific term. Task proactivity. They used a validated scale from Griffin and colleagues in 2007. An example item from this is initiated better ways of doing your core tasks. This is positive. This is what we put on our resumes. Number 2, perceived coworker ostracism. They used the Ferris scale. An example item from this is my coworkers shut me out of the conversation. Note the word perceived. We don't know if the coworkers actually held a meeting to banish Dave. We know that Dave feels banished. But in psychology, if you feel it, the consequences are real. Number 3, team envy. This is the spicy one. They measured state envy and aggregated it to the team level. Now, a sample item from this, some of my coworkers are envious of my accomplishments. They checked the stats to make sure that it was valid to treat this as a team trait. Basically, they found that in some teams, everyone feels envious. It's an envy climate. Now, number 4, production deviance. This is the outcome. They used a scale from Spectre in 2006, and the sample item might be purposefully did your work incorrectly. Whoa, let that sink in. We aren't talking about quiet quitting here. We aren't talking about just doing the bare minimum. Purposely did your work incorrectly. In safety, what does that look like? That looks like pencil whipping a checklist. That looks like ignoring a sensor alarm. That looks like skipping a lockout tagout step because, whatever. So the stakes here are high. If proactivity leads to this, we have a problem. So, what did the data say? They ran a multi level modeling analysis, specifically using M. For the stats nerds listening, they group mean centered the individual variables and grand mean centered the team variables. Good practice. Now, finding number one, being good equals being lonely. Sort of. Hypothesis one was that task proactivity predicts ostracism. The result? Statistically significant. So, generally speaking, the more proactive you are, the more likely you are to feel excluded. The tall poppy effect is real. Now, finding number two, the green eyed monster is the key. Hypothesis 2 looked at team envy as the moderator. They found a significant interaction with team envy. When team envy was low, -1 standard deviation, the relationship between being proactive and being ostracized disappeared. It was non significant. If you are on a team that supports each other where people aren't jealous, you can be a star and you won't get punished. You'll probably get high fives. But when team envy was high, +1 standard deviation, the relationship shot up. In a jealous team, being proactive is a social death sentence. The authors use social comparison theory to explain this. If I'm insecure and you come in with your fancy new Excel macro that does my job in half the time, I don't look at you and think, wow, what a great resource. I look at you and think, he's making me look bad. He's threatening my resources. He's threatening my status. So I trigger a contrastive comparison. I distance myself from you to protect my ego. I ostracize you. Now, finding number three, the downward spiral. This is the one that keeps me up at night. Hypothesis 3 and 4 linked this back to production deviance. They found a first stage moderated mediation. Try saying that 3 times fast after a bourbon. Here is the chain of events supported by the data. Number 1, employee is proactive. Number 2, if the team is envious. Number 3, the team ostracizes the employee. Number 4, the employee feels the loss of belonging and control. Number 5, to regain control or vent frustration, the employee engages in production deviance. They specifically found that in high envy teams, the indirect effect on deviance was significant. In low envy teams, non-existent. This is the mediocrity trap. The high performer enters the system attacks the high performer eventually says, fine, you want me to be useless? I'll be useless. In fact, I'll be worse than useless. Now, before we go firing our teams for being jealous, let's do our due diligence. What are the limitations here? Number 1, self-reporting bias. The biggest dirty B word here is that the employees rated themselves. They rated their own proactivity. I am awesome. They rated their own ostracism. They hate me. They rated their own envy perceptions. They are jealous of me. Is it possible that these proactive employees are just narcissists? Is it possible they aren't actually being ostracized, but they just feel like martyrs because nobody threw them a parade for fixing the printer? The authors controlled for negative emotions and job satisfaction, which helps rule out the I'm just grumpy factor, but we lack the perspective of the coworkers. I would have loved to see the coworkers asked, hey, do you hate Dave? And if so, is it because he works too hard or because he microwaves fish in the break room? Number 2, the cultural lens. Again, we have to look at the China factor. The authors explicitly quote, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. In hyper-individualistic sales culture in the US, proactivity might trigger less ostracism and more direct competition. Oh, you made 10 calls? I'm going to make 20. But in safety is often a cost center. It's a support function. It relies on influence, not authority. I would argue that safety teams function very similarly to collectivistic groups. We succeed or fail together. So, if one safety pro is making everyone else look lazy, I bet you my next paycheck this dynamic happens in Ohio just as much as it happens in Beijing. Now, number 3, the production deviance measure. They measured deviance 1 month later. That's good, but is 1 month enough? Real burnout, real cynicism, that takes time to bake. I wonder if we checked back in 6 months, would those employees have quit? Or would they have fully assimilated into the do nothing culture? The study stops at the acting out phase. I want to know about the giving up phase. Now, why am I bringing this to you? I'm a safety professional, not a therapist, though the lines blur sometimes. This study is a warning shot for how we manage our teams and how we manage our own careers. Now, number 1, for the leaders, if you manage a team of safety pros and you hire a rock star, let's say someone with a doctor of public health degree, a certified safety professional, someone who quotes regression stats in their sleep, you need to watch the team, not just the rock star. If you see the team going quiet when the rock star walks in, that's not just awkwardness. That is a precursor to your rock star failing. You cannot just drop a high performer into a mediocre, envious culture and expect them to lift everyone up. The data says the culture will drag them down. You have to manage the team envy. You have to create assimilative comparisons. That means showing the team, hey, if Dave succeeds, we all look good. Dave is here to help us get budget, not to steal your job. You have to frame the proactivity as a team resource, not an individual threat. Now, number 2, for the proactive employee, that's you. If you are the one trying to change things and you feel that chill in the air, maybe stop. Don't just work harder. The data says working harder will just increase the ostracism. You are triggering the contrastive effect. They see you as other. You need to bridge that gap. You need to be politically savvy. The authors suggest consider the perspectives of their team members and help them advance together. Basically, share the glory. If you build a new tool, put someone else's name on it with you. Make your proactivity benefit their workload, not just your resume. Because if you don't, you are going to end up in that production deviance bucket. You'll start resenting the place. You'll start cutting corners. And then you're not a high performer anymore. You're just another safety hazard. And that is the no bullshit truth. We like to think performance is just about skill and will, but it's not. It's about the pack. And if the pack turns on you, even the alpha wolf eventually stops hunting. This study gives us the data to prove that office politics isn't a distraction from the work, it is the work. So, next time you feel like the nail's sticking out, maybe check to see who's holding the hammer before you stretch any higher. And that's it for this deep dive. I'm going to go post this study on LinkedIn and see how many people actually get envious of my ability to read PDFs on a Saturday. If you liked this episode, leave a review. If you didn't, well, I'll just assume you're engaging in production deviance. As always, if you have research that you want to share on the podcast, whether it's your own or just a really cool study you found or some research you've been able to effectively put into practice, send me an email at contact@proveitpod.com. Until next time, I'm Dr. Matt Law. Thanks for listening to the Prove It To Me podcast. Take care and stay safe, everyone. Prove It To Me is produced by me, Matt Law. Original music by Wes London. You can find this podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Like what you've heard so far? Please like, subscribe, and follow wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Got questions about what we talked about or research that you want to share? Send an email to contact@proveitpod.com. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and its guests and do not necessarily represent the official position, opinion, or strategies of their employers or companies. Examples of research and data analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based on very limited, often single use case, and sometimes dated information. Assumptions made within this discussion about research and data analyses are not necessarily representative of the position of the host, the guests, or their employers or companies. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast. The presentation of the content by the guests does not necessarily constitute an active endorsement of the content by the host.